Sesaat lagi kita akan memulai berbicara dengan Uncle Kage, CEO of Entrecon.
I do actually have some questions. It's kind of like a bit more personal as well, but also not personal. It's in between. So I do have a question which involves like, how do you keep your spirit going to keep the con going? Because, there are times like it's COVID and sometimes we get mentally drained, exhausted and all, and kind of makes us feel, I don't want to do this. What do I do? Like, how do you keep the spirit going?
It can be difficult, and there are lots of times, sometimes every day when I'll say to somebody, why do we keep doing this? It's a lot of work. It's very mentally draining. It can be difficult when you're trying very, very hard and you've got what seems to be the entire world criticizing your efforts. That's tough. When you're doing your damnedest to make folks happy and all they do is bitch about it. When things get really difficult and I start to lose hope, I find it useful just to pull up videos of like Enthrecon's fursuit parade or the block party that we had. Just seeing all the smiles on people's faces will remind me why we do it. We are doing it to bring that incredible outpouring of joy to the folks who gather in Pittsburgh. And that's worth it. That's what keeps us going.
We could say that happiness is pretty contagious to keep us going.
Yes, it is.
Thank you, Uncle Kage, for your insight in this. All right, I get the chance to ask again. So earlier we didn't get to record I'm asking about your Sona. So can you please tell us again, how did you come up with a cockroach as your Sona?
It is unique.
It's a very interesting topic.
So, yes, I think I'm the only cockroach in the fandom.
I haven't seen any other. Yes.
No. Well, it's a long answer, so I hope you're comfortable.
That we forget all the time.
I grew up in the farmlands of Pennsylvania and did my schooling in the mountains of New Hampshire. I am a country person. My first assignment outside of my degree was in the middle of Chicago. I found myself in a city. I am not at all a city person. And I was very unhappy. I was lonely. I really did not like it. And I discovered that I could reach, we didn't have the internet then. You had to dial in with a modem, but I could reach this virtual furry world, this text-based universe of animals that walked and talked and interacted and had fun. And I did, and I was captivated. That was what really, really locked me in as a member of this furry community. And I wanted to be a part of it. We didn't call them personas then, we just called them characters. I was going to get a character. I wanted something that was unique, something that would be a good role-play challenge, something I could get into and have fun with, not something everybody else had. So I bought a book, Peterson's Field Guide to North American Wildlife. I thought I would get inspiration. And I was going through the book, starting the beginning as maybe a bear. I'm not really a bear kind of person. Coyote. Okay, we're going to mark that page. That's a possibility. Coyotes are not deer. Eagle, don't be a bird of prey. I used to work with birds of prey. Birds of prey are complete assholes. You do not want to be an eagle. Fox, there's thousands of them already. No. While I was looking through the book, I noticed there was movement up here. And I looked up, and crawling across the top of the monitor was the biggest, ugliest, greasiest cockroach you ever saw. The thing was 2 meters long, and it had 6-inch fangs. And I was horribly weirded out by this. And I took the book and I said, go, get out of here. And as on television, when you turn on a light, these things run away. This one just reared up at me like it was threatening me. And I dropped the book and I was looking at it and I said, that's a brave little bug. Look at that. And the gears began to turn and I envisioned a fearless samurai cockroach who would not back down from any kind of challenge, and that became my character. I named him Kagemushi, which is a pun One of my favorite films by the great director Kurosawa was Kagemusha, the Shadow Warrior. And it just so happens that mushi in Japanese means bug. So Kagemushi, the shadow bug, was born on that autumn day of October of 1991 and has been my fursona ever since.
I'm actually pretty, really invested in like, oh, cockroach. And it's just so iconic. I'm not gonna lie, it's actually really iconic. It's a cockroach, and it's the icon of fear for other people because I have an experience with cockroaches and it flew to me and I just you get the idea. Thank you so much.
Everybody's brave till the cockroach flies.
Thank you so much for sharing, Uncle Kage.
You're welcome. I've learned some things about cockroaches. One thing that surprised me, if a human being picks up a cockroach, then lets it go, the very first thing it will do once it has found a hiding place is it will thoroughly wash itself. Because cockroaches think that we are greasy and dirty and disgusting. Listen, people are very interested in this. You did a very good job. But if you want this thing to survive, you can't run it like a bunch of college kids having a party. This has got to run as a business. I'd been helping out at science fiction conventions and other types of conventions for years before that, so I had gotten some experience in the administrative end. Well, my reward for shooting off my mouth like that was they made me chairman.
Hey, tell me, what inspired you and everyone to create Entrocon?
There was really nothing could be considered a furry convention before about 1989. First furry convention started in California. It had its own atmosphere, its own vibe, if you will. It was very free-spirited, shall we say. There was no real concern for public appearance or public decorum. We're here to have fun. We're going to do whatever we want. And it didn't look like a very wholesome place. People wanted an alternative. A small furry convention had started on the East Coast, but had not really gone anywhere. As I said, you can't run this like a party. You've got to run it like a business for it to survive. And that one failed, but then the kids in Albany picked it up, and it was obvious the interest was there. Somebody wanted a different furry convention in the United States that they could go to that wasn't all the way out in California, and something that had a different vibe, shall we say. And that was how it began. And I saw its potential and I started running it as a business, and I must be doing something right because we're one of the largest in the world.
How do you see furries now comparing to back then?
A pretty broad question. They really haven't changed. Furries have always been very imaginative people. They tend to be very intelligent people. We have a large number of people with advanced degrees. They tend to be very highly empathetic people. They have strong, feelings of connection with other folks. They have not changed. There's just a lot more of them now than there used to be.
I would like to say that how Entrocon itself is actually a really big impact to us, the East Asian part, because we get to learn how the Western part, in a way, we learn to see how the Western part works, and slowly we learn, furry weather is very open, very amazing. And because of that Western side, we, as the Eastern part, is the Asian part here, we get to understand. It makes us feel like as a whole, we can interact with everyone. We see that as we're not a different race. We're the same community. We're a family, and that's how I think Entrocon impacts all of us. It's amazing how one con can make us feel like a whole part of a family.
Thank you very much. That's very flattering for you to say. But if we serve as an example, then I'm very, very happy. There are lots of conventions out there. Anthrocon is not alone. We do have a large international contingent come to Anthrocon, and I like to think that they bring some of that joy back home, and then they want to share it when they get back home. It's interesting to me because I've been all over the world at FurryCon. You can put a fursuit out into the streets of Chicago, Taipei, Tokyo, or Paris, or Berlin, or London. You're going to get a positive response. It's a universal thing.
I remember that you visit Forum 2019, right?
Yes, I did.
You're the guest of honor, if I'm not wrong. I think we ever met before.
I loved Forum. Malaysia was a wonderful country. The people were very friendly. Everything was fantastic until they gave me the durian wine.
Yeah, I remember.
It was a little different.
What is the first thing to prepare when you want to build an event?
First thing is to ask, do we need this event? This is something that I see all the time with people trying to start conventions. It's the biggest mistake they make. I want to have a convention here in my hometown because a convention out there is not going to make people come. I tell people, how many people came to your last fur meet? You had a bowling party or just a furry picnic or something. How many people came to the last one? And almost inevitably they say, well, we've never held a fur meet. How do you expect 300 people to magically come to your town? A convention is not something that you just throw out and it sticks to the wall. That's not how it works. A convention is something that must grow organically. You have to start with a gathering of furries. Get a bunch of people together. Have a fur meet. Have something small. A picnic. A bowling party. A party at a house. If you can get 50 people to come to your bowling meet, okay, maybe now you can talk about having a convention. Even that has to start small. There are so many conventions out there who have come in with high hopes and dreams. We're going to start a convention here in, East Bum-Trodden, Iowa. There's only 2 parking places in the entire town, and the nearest airport is 4 hours away. We're going to have 1,000 people. It doesn't work. That is the absolute first thing. Do we need a convention here? Just because we want one doesn't mean we should have one, and the area supports it. That's the first thing you have to consider. Now, do you want me to keep going with if the answer to that is yes, what you should do?
Yeah, sure.
Next thing you have to do is gather some form of staff. 1 person, 2 people, 3 people cannot put on a convention. You need to assemble a team. This person is going to be in charge of registration. This person's going to be in charge of hotel issues. This person will be in charge of safety. This person will be in charge of programming. If you're a small convention, maybe 1 person can handle 2 different departments. If you're only getting 50 people, you can do that. You need a single authority. You need a chairperson. You need 1 person to make the final decisions. Once you have your team, you have to find out where you're going to have your convention. It is a very complicated question. Is there a single hotel where you can have it? Does it have enough space? Does it have enough hotel rooms? Is it located somewhere that people can get to easily? People are coming locally that have a lot of parking. All of these things seem positive. And approach the hotel with what we call a request for proposal, an RFP, and tell them we want to have this kind of convention here. Here's what we're looking for. Let's talk. And that's how you start.
Okay, next is we're going to ask how to budget an event.
That's where the magic happens. First, you have to figure out how many people are going to go. How many do you expect to show? And then of that number, cut it in half. Build your budget for half the number of people that you expect. 1,000 people to come. Ask yourself, how much are you going to charge for a membership? That's something I can't discuss. There's various reasons for that. You have to determine what is a reasonable amount of money for people to pay for a membership. Let's say, to throw out a number, it's $10 is your membership fee. You expect 1,000 people. That's $1,000 that you expect to come in. You write your budget based on $5,000. You do that because if you don't get 1,000 people and you budgeted for 1,000 people, you're going to be in debt for the rest of your life. because people aren't just going to walk away and let you not pay the bill. If you build your budget based on $5,000, you bring in $20,000, how is that a problem? You have more money for next year. If you budget for $5,000, only $3,000 comes in, at least you are not in debt as far as you could have been. So you can expect $5,000 to come in based on your best estimate of attendance, which you have cut in half. That's how you budget. And for half the people to show up. Now, you can talk with the hotel or the venue, the center. It doesn't have to be a hotel. It could be a youth hostel. It can be anything, really. And make sure they're aware. This is not a big corporation. This is not Microsoft coming in here. We're a brand new event. We expect to have this much money. In fact, here's our spreadsheet right here. This is how much money we expect to have. There isn't any more. What can you do for us for this amount of money? Because remember, hotels are in the business of making money. They're going to try to get the maximum amount of money that they can. They need to know up front, this is not a bottomless bucket of money. Here's how much I'll have. Don't overcharge me. Now that is my method of negotiation. Different convention organizer might tell you differently, but it's been very successful for Anthrocon. I have always told the venues, I'm not keeping the money for myself, I'm giving it to you. This is how much there's gonna be. I still have $1 left at the end of the year. I'm going to come back next year with a bigger box of money, and I'm going to give it to you. And then if there's still $1 left, next year I'm going to come back with a bigger box of money, and I'm going to give it to you. And every year that box will get bigger and bigger, and it's all yours. But the very first time I have to put my own dollar into that box, it will all end. I found that to be a very successful negotiating tactic. I like the idea of an event coming back year after year. Also want to make sure that there is something nearby. So let's say that you have 1,000 people are going to come. If your hotel only has 50 available rooms, you need to put these people someplace. Hopefully that hotel is not all by itself on the top of a mountain, nothing nearby. You need to have what we call an overflow space where people can stay. But also remember, if you expect 1,000 people to come, how many of those people are going to stay in a hotel room? They live 2 kilometers down the road, they're just going to go home. Why should they spend hundreds of dollars stay in a hotel room when they can just stay at home? There is no easy formula for this. It's going to be different with every region, every convention. If you're holding a convention and everybody attending the convention is coming from the immediate area, probably don't need more than % of the number of attendees in hotel room.
Yeah.
Nice thing is, usually you can always add hotel rooms. Never promise a hotel will fill 500 rooms, especially if it's your first year. If you're expecting 1,000 people, budget based on 5,000. A lot of them are coming locally. Tell the hotel, we will fill 50 rooms. If those 50 rooms all are filled in the first day, say to the hotel, let's have another 50 rooms. The hotel will be happy to give you more rooms. Need more rooms. I need more rooms. It's especially important the first year. Keep adding rooms until you find the point where they're not selling anymore. Now you know how many rooms you need, and that will help you the following year. Started with 50 rooms, and you added, you finally got to the point where you sold 400 rooms. Now you can tell the hotel, next year was a contract for 400 rooms.
Thank you for the explanation. That's very nice. I learned a new thing now. I learned new
The
idea.
most important thing, and I'll probably keep repeating this over and over, is not over promise. Always want to under promise. Because, as I said, if you wind up giving till more than it expected, they're very happy. If you give them less than they expected, they're not going to be happy.
So we're going to talk about promotion and sponsorship.
Other people may have different ideas, but if you have a single entity, especially a business entity sponsoring you, own you. I'll tell you a story. I will not name the convention out of professional courtesy. A convention once was approached by a big gaming company. It said, "We're going to sponsor you. We're going to pay for all these things." And the convention said, "Ooh, yay, goody. Okay, great. Look at all this money we have." 2 weeks before the convention, their sponsor called them up and said, "We need to change the programming around. We can't have this, or this. You have to have programming that promotes our product." And the convention said, "Well, we don't want to do that." But the sponsor said, "Hey, we paid you. We gave you money. Now you need to promote us." Antrocon doesn't do that. Nobody owns my convention other than the people who attend it. If you're talking corporate sponsorships, no. Individual sponsorships, by which we mean the sponsor level memberships, those are fine because people understand that I'm paying extra money to help the convention. Here's where sometimes people don't quite understand the idea. You probably, I don't know if you have the same sort of public television in your country that we have in this country here. We have public television stations that don't advertise. They make money by getting donations from the viewers. Viewers will donate $1,000 and they'll say, "Okay, for your $1,000, we'll give you this nice pair of socks. You get a beautiful pair of socks for your donation for $1,000. That pair of socks worth $1,000? No, it's worth 25 cents. Got these at Goodwill because they had orcas on them. I liked them." It's a gift to show the organization's appreciation. I've seen the big mistake that conventions make. They say, "Okay, we're going to offer a sponsor level membership. My membership level is $10. For $50, be a sponsor. We're going to give the sponsors a t-shirt and a boat tour and a gourmet lunch, and we're going to give them this, we're going to give them that." And I said, wait a minute, stop. How much is all that costing you between the t-shirt and the gourmet lunch? Well, that costs $50. What's the point of having a sponsor? You're losing money. Idea of a sponsorship is they are donating money to help out, not expecting $50 worth of presents. Become a sponsor to our convention. We'll give you a nice pair of socks. And have multiple sponsor levels. Antrocon has the sponsor. Give us an extra donation. We give you a t-shirt. T-shirt is not the same cost as that donation. We still are getting money donated in. You have the super sponsor. You get more thing. The amount that is donation you've paid for all those extra things is still more money than those things are worth. You're a super sponsor. We'll give you this amazing 1999 vintage flip phone or whatever. It's worth $2.18. Thank you for your $500 donation. Your corporate sponsors, no. Individual sponsors, members who give you extra money in return for recognition, small present, seating in the front of the row somewhere. Those work fine.
I see a lot of furries also want to support each other, so usually they just go straight getting the super sponsor as well, right?
You have some folks who buy a super sponsorship at Antrocon, and then they will tell me, "Don't need the t-shirt, don't need the luncheon. Thank you very much. I'm doing this to support the convention." We also have the ability to take extra donations, and we invite people. If you don't want to be a sponsor, but you'd still like to make a donation, you can do that on the registration page. Furries are generous, and they know that they're not bankrolling your new Mercedes-Benz. Their money is going to make this convention a success. It's going for them. They are willing to help pay for it.
Okay, next after we talk about the super sponsor and everything, next we're going to talk about how many teams that Antrocon have and how do you maintaining the team.
How to put the team together. That is also done very differently at different organizations. At Antrocon, we are what you call a meritocracy. That means generally you start out as a volunteer, and if you're a volunteer in a department and you're doing a very good job, you're very dedicated, you're competent, we're going to notice that and we're going to ask you to be staff next year. And As a staff member, if you continue to do a very good job and continue to be very competent, we might put you in a leadership position, in charge of a team under the department or even in charge of the department. Eventually, we may ask you to join the board of directors. That's how Anthrocon is set up. We have the chairman at the top, then we have 10 individual directors. Those directors are each in charge of a department. You have the safety director, the art show director, the programming director, and so on. And each director has their own team. They put that team together themselves. They decide who's going to be on staff, and they do that primarily by seeing who has worked for them and done a good job in the past. The original team that I put together, I had the advantage in that I was guest at Albany Anthrocon 1998. When I took over, I had already seen who knew what they were doing, or who at least were very competent to learn the job. So I was able to hand pick them and say, okay, you, and you. This can be difficult, especially for furries, because we're a very empathetic kind of people. You need the right person in the job. You might want to take your best friend or your boyfriend or girlfriend and make them a director, but they have to be qualified. I have told people who say, I want to run a convention, don't take the job if you're not willing to fire your best friend at some point. You have to have the correct person in the job, and if you don't, you have to get someone in there who can do it. That's the painful side of running a convention. If you want the convention to succeed, you can't just put your friends in charge. It doesn't work like that. That's a very difficult question. There's no magic formula. Like I said, it's best if you can see them in action, either at last year's convention, if you've been around a while, or at other conventions. I have poached staff. People have poached staff for me. It's fine. We all do it, and it's all friendly. I may attend a convention and see somebody in a job and see them doing a very good job at it. And I might go up to them, take them to the bar, get them drunk, and say, did you ever consider joining the staff at Anthrocon? I could use someone like you. And all I have to do is get them to say yes, and then they belong to me. Yep, I'll approach them and invite them to join staff. Is better if you can see somebody working and then invite them onto staff. You don't always have that luxury. Sometimes you might just have to put word out, we are looking for staff members. In that event, it's helpful to have a recommendation from another convention. Have you worked at another convention? Pretty much all I can say. The one department that is always troublesome is security department. You have to have someone making sure that people aren't misbehaving. You have to make sure that someone is not going to be drawing on the walls or drinking too much. Problem is, at least in my experience, the people who want to be on security are not the people you want to have on security. Because some folks seem to just want to be able to have the position of being the boss and telling people what to do. In fact, I recently invited a fellow to join the security staff at Anthrocon, specifically because he told me he wasn't sure if he wanted to be on security staff. And I said, you're perfect for it. You don't really work very hard to promote Anthrocon. Anthrocon has already an established reputation. Word of mouth is the strongest marketing we can do. But you do have to have a social media presence. You really ought to have a web page where people can go to look up information. Having yourself out there on the internet. Furries, just like we were in the beginning, we are still primarily an internet-based fandom. Ask people to signal boost it, coerce somebody with lots of Twitter followers, could you signal boost this for us? The hardest thing is the unknown, how many people are going to be there. You can have pre-registration, of course, but there's no way to predict how many people are going to show up on site. You could pre-register 300 people and have 1,000 show up on site. You could pre-register 900 people and have 2 show up on site. Until you've actually had your first convention, there is no way to predict. So there can be a lot of anxiety. Are we going to have enough people to support this effort without going broke? But just as much anxiety, are we going to have too many people and we won't have enough space for them? All these things are unknown, and you simply have to plan as best you can. Try to have contingency plans. What are we going to do if only 100 people show up? What are we going to do if 3,000 people show up? More you can plan for something going wrong, the less likely it is that something will go wrong. Because if you're ready for it, it's not going to happen. That is the hardest part for me as an administrator. I think the second hardest part, how do I put this, is what to do if you have somebody in a staff position who isn't doing the job. They don't seem to be able to do the job, or they don't seem to be willing to put the work in. I can't tell you how to fix that. That's just something that if you're in charge, you'll have to take care of. And you sometimes have to decide between a person's feelings and the good of the organization. So what's more important, that this person stays happy or the convention succeeds? Sometimes that is a hard decision that has to be made.
Like, what is the most memorable and fun moments you have when you create Anthrocon at the first place until now?
Oh boy. There are lots and lots and lots of those. Everybody asks me what's the most memorable moment. The entire experience is memorable. First year, just seeing how happy everybody was, hearing the applause at the closing ceremonies when we announced we're going to be coming back next year, just the thrill that people had to be there, the energy that was in the air. That's something that is hard really to define, but once you've experienced it, you will never forget it. We're in the business of making people happy, and knowing that we succeeded is really the best reward we can have.
What's next for Anthrocon?
What's next for Anthrocon is the next Anthrocon. We're already in the planning stages. We've opened up registration. At this point, it's just the long road of planning, putting things in place, checking and rechecking the budget to make sure we're not going to overspend ourselves, and waiting for the big day to come up in the summer of 2023.
I hope the event goes very well. Maybe if I get a chance.
Me too, believe me.
I think I have one last question. This is personal. So, is it okay if I ask one more question? All right. So, how becoming a chairman or the organizer changed your life?
It's drawn a lot of attention to me. It can be a good thing, it can be a bad thing. A certain mindset that you need to have as an organizer of a convention if you want to be successful. You are now the face of the convention, and being the face of Anthrocon, I honestly think they need a different face because I'm getting this one all wrinkled. But you are now a public figure. You kind of lose the right to have strong personal opinions about things. You lose the right to have political opinions, because if you voice your opinions, people say, well, Anthrocon thinks this. You have to remember that as a public figure, you are always representing the convention anytime you go out. So you have to keep that in mind. Another thing that you have to consider is that you've got a staff that is made up of volunteers. They're working very, very hard. Sometimes things go wrong. When things go wrong, you're the one at fault. We've got a saying in this country, the buck stops here. If things don't work, if people aren't happy, that's on the chairman. If things work well, if things are fantastic, gotta remember it's because the folks out there, staff members, the volunteers, they made it work. And that is critical to the success of the organization. You are not a king, you're not an emperor. Some people get into the business of running a convention because they want to be the one in charge. They want to be the man. No, you don't, because not only will it put a huge target on your face, but if you're getting into it because you want to be the one in charge, you're going to fail. And that I state that without any reservations at all. You have to be in this because you want to do something for the fandom. You've got to be in this because you want to put on a good show. If you want to strut around and have everybody throw laurels at your feet, go into politics.
Terima kasih sudah hadir para furi-furi cermelang kita. Sampai jumpa lagi kepada informatif berikutnya.